Hi class, welcome back to our mini series Main Idea. In today's video, I'm going to teach you the difference between main idea and supporting details. Let's get started. Main idea, if you didn't see it in my first video about main idea versus author's purpose, main idea is what the passage is mainly about, right? It's what the whole thing is about. Usually you can find what the main idea is by identifying something called the thesis statement. A thesis statement is a 1 to 2 sentence summary of what the whole passage or article, whatever you're reading, is about and can be found often at the end of the introduction. That's only sometimes. Most of the time, a thesis statement is found at the end of an introduction, but sometimes writers include their thesis statement right at the beginning of their introduction. It might be the first, maybe not the first, but maybe the second or third third sentence. And then, if you need to understand the main idea of a novel or a piece of fiction, it's really whatever the central conflict is. So I think in my last video I used I used Star Wars as an example. So in Star Wars A New Hope, the central conflict is that Luke has to save Princess Leia and also defeat the Empire by destroying the Death Star. That's the main idea. That's what the movie is mainly about. Supporting details. Supporting details are facts or other pieces of information, like ideas or examples, that support the main idea. That's where it gets that support. That's where the name comes from, supporting details. They're called supporting details because it helps the writer explain what the whole thing is about. Right? It gives it's usually like evidence and things like that support what they're trying to say. Sometimes specific supporting details are stated in the introduction and are explained in the body of a passage or article. In a novel or work of fiction, the supporting details are in the when, where, why, and how. So let me go back to here. Sometimes specific supporting details are stated in the introduction and are explained in the body of a passage. Often when you learn to write, when we first learn to write, we will write our thesis statement perhaps, and then we'll include reasons, right? That your teacher will tell you to include 3 reasons that support whatever you're trying to say, right? Include 3 supporting details. And that's usually at the end of your introduction. So if you want to find supporting details, they're gonna be broadly stated in the introduction. And then if you need to find supporting details in a work of fiction, perhaps for like my high schoolers, it's in when the story took place, when the story took place, where the story took place, why, like for Romeo and Juliet, why was their love cursed by their family, and how did it all happen? Those would all be supporting details. So I'm going to give you an example here. Right, this is just something I wrote the other night when I was watching. I'm from Florida, right? I'm from Miami, Florida. So this is something that I just wrote as I was watching the game. This is not what happened at all, but I was inspired. So I'm gonna read it to you, okay? The Miami Heat's Friday night game against the Atlanta Hawks was a statement for the 10.5-point underdogs. Tyler Hero set the tone with a 14-point first quarter, nailing 3 consecutive triples right after tip-off. At no point did the Heat ever trail the Hawks, leading by as much as 27 midway through the third quarter. While they were collectively careless with the ball, committing 16 turnovers, their transition defense and an icy Trae Young made up for their mistakes. They were unstoppable, commented Ernie Johnson in the postgame show. Hopefully this win will be the start of a much-needed run as the Eastern Division remains up for grabs 3 weeks until the playoffs. So now, we're going to pause. You can pause the video, go back, mute me reading that, and identify the main idea and supporting details. Now I'm gonna reveal them to you, okay? Here we go. I often write my thesis statement, usually, sometimes, I think most of the time, I will write it at the beginning, right? Sometimes it's at the end for like school papers and things like that because that's what they want, but I sometimes write it in the beginning. And so this is the main idea, right? The Miami Heat's Friday night game against the Atlanta Hawks was a statement, right? This is the main idea. They made a statement. That's what this whole thing is about. How do I know that, right? Because we see it here. Tyler Herro set the tone with a 14-point first quarter. This supports the fact that the game was a statement by the team. At no point did the Heat ever trail the Hawks. That's another fact. Let's say it was a fact, right? We're just pretending. This is another fact that supports that the team made a statement. Their transition defense helped them make up for their turnovers, meaning they had a formidable transition defense. That supports that the team made a statement. And then here we have a quote by Ernie Johnson. They were unstoppable. That supports this idea that the team made a statement. Do you see how that works? That's main idea and supporting details, right? These are just things that help the writer support what they're trying to say. That's supporting details. So a few things I want you to remember. The main idea is a relatively specific statement concerning what the whole passage, article, or story is about. When I say relatively specific, try to think back to how I described the main idea for Star Wars. I said that Star Wars: A New Hope is a story about Luke who has to save Princess Leia and defeat the Empire by destroying the Death Star. That is only relatively specific. I talked about two characters, I talked about an antagonist, and I talked about what the protagonist, Luke, had to do. But I didn't say when or where or how. But I did give some details, so it was a little bit specific. Supporting details can be facts or other sources of information that support the main idea. Supporting details are parts of information, right? Supporting details is information that helps the writer say what they want to say. And then the main idea and supporting details can more than likely be identified in the introduction. The little example that I gave to you, I suppose was like a blurb, but I could have used all of those little facts in my introduction and written them in a more broad way so that I can continue explaining them in depth in the rest of my article. I hope that this helps. Thank you so much for watching and attending this class, and I'll see you next time. Hi scholars, it's Barbie, your teacher assistant. If you like this video but feel like you need a little bit more help, you can always email me at ytaest23@gmail.com for a private tutoring lesson. My rates are very flexible. I make it work to work with you. Thank you so much for being part of this class, and don't forget to subscribe.